Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Monday Masterclass session. This is Chapter 4, Product. So we will be getting started shortly. I'll just wait for a few people to join. There's a couple of people joining us over from the community as well.
We've got a poll today, everyone, which is if you'd like to have a look at the poll now, which you have put in there. Yes.
Just there it is.
Simon has just published a poll which invites you to let us know if you have or do not have a coaching product at the moment. We'll be getting into what coaching product is in due course, but interested to know what people's initial trigger answers are to that question. Hope you're all well. Let us know where you're listening in from, and I'm in North London, where it's just started to become sunnier a little bit. Hello, Carlos from sunny Brighton. That's nice. So good to have Carlos here.
Also in sunny Brighton. It's just about sunny. I mean, it's trying really hard. I'm really hoping it perseveres. I was going to go for a swim later, so.
Nice. Hi, Kieran from gorgeous Hampstead. What else is here today? Turn off my WhatsApp.
Oh, that's in London. North Norfolk, excellent.
Nice. Oh, lovely, Rob. And I think we might even have some people from overseas here, which is glam. So that's great. Lovely to have you all. And my mic is quiet, Carlos. Thank you so much. I'll just sort that one out. Probably because I turned it down. Is that any better?
That's a lot better. There we
Hooray. Go. Great. Yes, cloudy Poland, Jacob.
Oh,
yeah, it's probably similar.
Hopefully the sun makes its way over to you soon.
Yeah, exactly.
So this week we are going to be talking all about product. So this is chapter 4 of the marketing journey. You don't necessarily have had to have heard the previous 3 in order to join this session, but if you'd like to later on, you can just click on the Crowdcast logo in the top corner and you can go back and listen to the first 3 chapters if you'd like to, and you can go back and watch any of the previous Monday masterclasses that we've done, and also join us for any future ones, which is exciting. So let's start off, Francis, with I guess what we're sort of talking about when we're talking about a coaching product. Is there something that sort of comes to mind for you when you think about product?
Yeah, I mean, I want to credit Carlos, actually, who is here today, with a really inspiring conversation, which I'm actually going to share a link to in the chat, which I listened to after we did our week all about your niching and your ideal client. Let me just post that here. And it's a conversation that Carlos had with another one of our Simon and I are in a community called the Happy Startup School, and a couple of the community leader Carlos is one of the leaders, and Lana is another one of our kind of mentors, and they had a wonderful conversation about starting with who, which I've just posted a link to, which I really encourage other people to listen to. It's just half an hour, and it's great to. So it was very inspiring for me. But like I say, I listened to it after we did our session on niching. And the whole concept of starting with who, I think, is a great place to start in thinking about your product and what we're going to say about product, and designing a thing, a service that serves a particular person. And I'm just going to quote Lana, actually, who says, how can we better serve someone if we don't understand who they are? Which I think is just such a simple way of kicking off a conversation about what a product should look like. So that's where I want to start today.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I think it's one of those things that, I mean, me and Francis talk about this quite a lot, but in terms of product, people often jump straight to the packaging of the product. What does it look like? How many sessions is it? What price is it? Why do I need to have this in it? Should it include that? Does it? And it's like it's people jump straight to the exciting bit of product really quickly. And I think often they then try and retrospectively add in a who. So who are they doing it for? It's like, well, I've got this great like coaching product that I've got. Now, who do I think would like it? And that's just the wrong way. That's why people, I think, often find coaching quite hard to sell in the sales sense or attract people to, because they haven't designed the product for anyone. They've just designed something that they want to deliver. And then they're like, right, now let's go and find some people who I think might like this. And it's the wrong way to think about it, because it's a very hard sell. Trying to sell someone something they don't want is really difficult. I mean, I've been in marketing for almost 20 years, and you've been in marketing for about the same sort of time. And it's really hard to market stuff to people who don't want it, because it's an uphill battle, isn't it? And it's one of those bits of advice, I think, that people just don't often get to with marketing, because they just jump straight to the exciting, shiny, packagey bit where they're like, "Oh, it's 6 sessions. Look at this." It's like, yeah, it's great. It's 6 sessions for who? Well, I didn't really think about that bit. I've just made a packet of sessions, and I want to go and sell this to some people.
Yeah, and we could go down a few rabbit holes here. I think just to kind of backtrack slightly for anyone who hasn't been present for the last 3 of our sort of chapters of our marketing journey, we've done work on our mindset and our what we call our value compass. So, you know, we've been hopefully kind of giving everybody time to think about what's important for them. Not only what is the value that they serve, but what are the values on which they base their own lives. You know, so the sweet spot with the product is to think about the who, and to think about who you're trying to serve and what the best thing for them looks like. But so much of what designing a product is all about is also in mind of your own limitations and the sustainability with which you're designing your coaching business. So yeah, the first rabbit hole is kind of, is this for them? Is this for me? What's the balance? And, you know, we've talked in the second chapter, which is all about your ideal client, about niching, and how similarly niching should serve you in that, you know, what you want to come to or settle on is a person that you can help, who's also going to serve back to you the energy that's going to help you with your making your business sustainable. And equally with products, I think it's a case of knowing that whatever you're designing now or want to settle on now isn't something that you need to or indeed should sort of look to have forever, because as you iterate, as we all iterate, you know, what we're packaging is going to have to change to reflect things in our own lives, and whether those are tangible things like can you not work in school holidays, or whether they're emotional things, you know, these things undulate. And so the way in which we are producing something that is going to respond to the needs of a client, whether they are, and that's the second rabbit hole, is how how problem aware is your, well, product aware, that's another question, isn't it? How problem aware is your ideal client, and sort of how sensitive and ethical do we have to be about our marketing in presenting an offering which produces an outcome that you can support someone with, is another rabbit hole to go down today.
Well, yes, I think that is a great. I mean, just to sort of delve into your first rabbit hole a little bit, it is the balance there, and I think a lot of people forget when they're building or designing a product, when you're sort of sat there thinking, right, what do I want this to look like? What is this all about, this product I'm building? They forget that they get to choose. So just because Jane, who does marketing in a similar sector that you've found online, does 8 packages and charges this much money for it, and the sessions last this long, and you have to also buy a book, doesn't mean you have to match that in order to be appealing to the same clients. It's like, you know, just because a lot of what I see people try and do online is they try and match what personal trainers do. Now, personal trainers, they make a lot of money selling the same thing over and over and over again, but they have a really high churn rate. So people will often do a program, then fall out of practice, and then go and find another PT and just do the same thing again for anything between 1 and 50 years. So the PT market is enormous and has a lot of money behind it and a lot of amazing statistics. So a lot of what I see online around selling high ticket coaching programs is all based on the same model that PTs use. And it just, when you really get into it, just to me, just doesn't fit with selling coaching at all, because it's all about quick sells. It's all about, it's all just very salesy, and it doesn't sit with to what I understand and what I feel coaches really want to be selling. And it touches on some areas that are quite uncomfortable. So without wanting to get into sales, I just wanted to say that a lot of the people I see and hear talking about coaching marketing and coaching sales and selling coaching products and those high ticket items, I know just from having not worked with a few of them, but seen how they work, and I've been on some similar training to what those people have been on, so I know where they're coming from, and it is in this world of PT, personal training essentially. And not to discredit anything they're doing, but it's a different product, different outcome, different thing. But some of those sensationalized statistics that we see, my favourite being 10x your income, those sort of 10x your income, sell 10 high ticket courses in 3 minutes, all of this sort of stuff, all comes from that world of PT. So just because it's working well there doesn't mean it's going to work well here. And I think, you can draw on elements that resonate with you from all sorts of places, from cars, hairdryers, computers, whatever you want, whatever those marketing, you can draw inspiration from those, but you don't have to replicate or feel you've got to keep up with what anybody else is doing in their marketing.
100%. And Carlos has said, somebody told me that our obsession with selling tactics is compensation for our lack of good marketing, which very much echoes what we stand for, which is the existential road that talking about marketing often goes down, which is to say you can't really do good marketing unless you are very clear on your own and others' needs and sort of the most appropriate and suitable and ethical way to provide the best outcomes. So and actually, interestingly, something else that Lana said in this wonderful conversation with Carlos that I posted a link to now, it's around the state of chaos is how they refer to it. And the recording was done at the beginning of lockdown, where people were in quite a frightful place emotionally, and also literally everyone was in chaos. So it's the idea of the obsession tactic, I think, that's often employed is around getting people from out of A and into B, and I think sometimes there's something to be said for how a coaching product can allow people to sit productively in A kind of thing, and how chaos needn't necessarily be toxic, but rather it's about kind of how can you help somebody to repurpose what they might understand to be a chaotic place, and to kind of breed innovation and provide a safe space. So again, some of those kind of more conventional marketing tactics that might encourage you to point people away from where they are and into something else, whether that's more money or a better opinion of something or themselves. That's all great, and that might well be where we can work with people most successfully, but there's also something to be said for, as coaches, you're incredibly qualified to kind of hold safe space for people to work with what they have now. So a lot of the conventional marketing tactics don't necessarily apply to how well you can build a product and then market it.
And I think also, just to sort of think about that, is a lot of people, it's like, well, how can I get someone from A to B? As you said, A to B, it's a linear path, but sometimes your process is a circle. Sometimes it's, we start here, we work through all of these things, and actually we end up back where we started, but with a different opinion or view or whatever, insight. And then sometimes it's a line, and then we leave that line, we come back and we do another line, and then we do another line. You can visualize your process in many different ways, and I think it in terms of when you're thinking about how you sell that to a client as a concept, actually what you need to do, and this is something we talk about a lot in our self-service course, but also that we work on in our program that we're launching, where we go into a lot more detail, is actually you need to disconnect almost your product from your method, because your method is how you deliver your outcome, insight or feeling to your coaching client, and that needs to be written in their words, and it needs to be visualized in a way that makes sense to them. It could be a line, circle, many lines, a triangle, whatever works. It's that way that they can understand, well, I'm here and I'm in my problem aware space, so I know there's something that's I want to do something about, and I feel like I want to be in this other place, and the thing that connects that and the process that maps from here to there is what your method is. And if you can get someone to link that method and in their mind think, that's what I need to do, I need to look at this and this, and then I'll feel like that, then that's great. And a method is really easy to talk about, because you can talk about it all day, because you're not selling anything, you're just talking about the method. So we talk about our 6 chapters of marketing. There are 6 chapters in a marketing journey. There's the 6 things you need to think about, work on and get right in order for your marketing and your coaching business to be more effective. There's no sale there. That's just our 6 chapters. That's our method. So by talking and inviting people to come and listen to us talk about our method, all we're doing is saying, well, actually, this is our method. If you do this stuff and think about this stuff and work on this stuff, it works. And there's no sale in that method. And that is crucial, because that helps you disconnect that sales conversation that people cringe at. And then what you then do is you say, right, well, to deliver this method, I need to package that in a way that someone can actually buy. So what do? Well, you can either package it as one thing, or you can package it as 2 things, or you can package it as 10 things. And this is what I was saying right at the beginning, which is people jump to this packaging bit without having first got clear on, well, what am I actually trying to deliver? What is this method that sits in the middle that people can buy into, can understand and know that that's the solution or the outcome or the feeling or the insight that they want to achieve.
And
so I
just want to mention here that, Carlos is talking about,
yes.
First of all, he mentions the hero's journey, and for anyone who was here last week, our Monday masterclass was dedicated to the hero's journey and the idea of your story, and how all of this stuff will help someone understand that you're the best guide to take them on that journey. To, as Carlos says, empowerment and understanding that they also can, or they can with you, achieve whatever it is that they may or may not be aware is a problem. So through your product, which is, the package of your method.
Yeah, and I think the method and the story is also a really good way of signposting to people who aren't the right fit that you're not the right guide. And your method is great because it shows people, okay, well, this is how I do what I do. This is what I'm all about. If that doesn't resonate with you, if you don't believe that that's going to work, then this product certainly isn't going to be for you. And it may then encourage them to go off and find another coach who has a different product and a different way of delivering their method that is the right fit for them. And in learning that, they will intrinsically trust you, even though you've told them that what you do isn't quite right for them. But there's a certain honesty and integrity there to have the confidence to say, well, this is my method, this is what I'm all about. If this isn't for you, then that's fine. Because people would much rather find out ahead of time that it's not for them, rather than buy a product and in session 1 you then get out the map and go, right, this is what we're going to be doing, this is what my method looks like, and they're like, oh, that is not for me. I did not think that's what was going to be involved at all. So I think there's that element of saving you time and effort and energy talking to the wrong people really early on by simply having a method and then having a product at the end of that method, which is for some people and it isn't for everybody, and that's okay.
I just want to address Jacob's really interesting question. Don't you think that having more than 2 to 3 products makes potential clients a bit dizzy and confused? I think that absolutely can be the case. When, for example, we have lots of different products that don't necessarily make any sense when you look at them together or as part of our story. So I think part of, just to use what Simon and I do as an illustration, as a case in point, we have our 6 chapters, which is our method, and indeed, as you're asking, Carlos, it could be seen as our philosophy, our outlook, our approach to how best you can do marketing ethically as a coach and in a way that serves you best. So we take our 6 chapters. Now, we have, as you've seen, Jacob, in the community, dedicated time and space to looking at each one. So we have, for the last few weeks, focused on a particular one of the 6 in our Monday masterclasses. And then in the community, our Better, Bolder, Braver community, we've also been talking around those themes, the chapter themes. So the first one being about mindset, the second one being about your ideal client, third one being about your story, and today and this week we'll be thinking about product. So we are serving up our philosophy, our method in a number of ways through the Monday masterclasses, in week-on-week conversations within our community. We are building a series of kind of ways in which you can deeper immerse yourself in these things. So we have a self-service course, which Simon has mentioned. And then we also have a much more immersive program, which you'll all be hearing about in due course. So you could argue we also have a podcast. We have a website, we have a blog. Are these products of our approach? They're tangible things that one can either buy monetarily or not buy into, because they're things that are free, but one still pays in terms of the time taken to read a blog, sign up for our newsletter. So these are all products in the sense of we've packaged up what we do and what we stand for so that we can serve it to you, and then we are furthermore articulating how this product works in terms of what the outcome is that you may or may not be aware of needing, but which we are able to help you with. Now, we may at this juncture like to talk about just loosely touch on that sort of product aware, product unaware thing, and as you were saying, Simon, earlier, the sort of needs and wants. We don't want to go too deep on this, and I'll let you say why, perhaps.
Well, I think I think it's a really good point, and it's a great question from Jacob as well there, because yes, you can offer too much. So you can go the other way from only having one product that you're not explaining. You can go the other way to having, I do this. I've got 10 different things you can buy. Let me explain all of them. There's definitely a happy balance in the middle. So the middle area, I think, is about understanding. So if you've got your method and you've got your customers, your clients to sort of think about that methodology and to buy into that methodology, as Francis said, you can then package that up for different levels at different stages. So for someone who's just starting out exploring that area, then you may want to make a guide or a short book, like a mini guide almost. So someone can learn more about your methodology and further buy into it. And you may choose to give that away as a gift to people who are interested. That could be sort of one level. Then the next level you might want to go to is, well, here's a sort of self-service option. So it's not directly me, but it is my knowledge. Now that doesn't work for all sorts of coaching. You may also like to consider at that point a group session, because that may be another way that you can make and price an offer at a level that's more attractive to people who are just starting out. So you could do sort of self-service, you could do groups, you could do a mixture of that. You'll have to sort of see what fits and what works. And then you could have a sort of next level of that, which may then go to be smaller focused groups. It could be a more in-depth look through all of the different elements of your method. And then finally, above at the very top of that ladder, you could then have one-to-one work. And what that allows people to do is, for people who are at different stages of that journey and understanding and work, you've got some offerings. So in that sense, you could have 4 or 5 products, but it actually makes sense to have those products because they're not 5 products that are for the same person. They're 5 products for for people in 5 stages of their own journey. Now, for some people that might be 2. For some people that could be 10. This is why having a method and a niche makes this whole process so much easier. Because if I say to someone who doesn't have a niche and isn't clear on their method, well, how many products do you need? They just go, I don't know, 4? They don't know. Whereas if it's a niche, it's like, well, actually, I know my niche goes through this stage, this stage, this stage, so I need 3 products. And my method is the same for all 3 of them. I just deliver it in different ways. For another coach, it might be, actually, my client is either this or they're this. And actually, they're two different methods. They cover the same work, but it's 2 different methods. They're different steps. So they do this bit and then they do this bit. You see what I mean? Very quickly, we get into a huge range of different visualizations of products, mapping and different things. But what I hope is becoming clearer to everybody is that actually the niche and the method and the understanding of those 2 will then inform what products you need and, more crucially, want to make.
I was going to say, so for me as well, it's just touching back on the mindset and the story stuff. So mindset is going to dictate, because once you're clear on your values and your boundaries and your limits, what you can produce in a way that's going to serve you back. So you may well have done an excellent job of niching, and it should be that if you've niched appropriately according to your own values, then you will have centered down on an audience that's going to be energizing for you back in terms of what the relationship will be like with them. But you could then come up with the most amazing, in theory, product to serve their needs, that works very responsibly in terms of their own limits and boundaries and sort of awareness. But if it's not going to serve you because on a logistical level it's not something that you can deliver, or on an emotional level it's going to be draining, then these are all things that should also inform your decision about what products you're building, how many you have, etc. And then also I want to just mention another thing at this point. Seth Godin talks about something called the practice, which is kind of about showing up every day, and Seth has a blog post which he posts on every day, and posts to, sorry, I'm just going to use them, make sure that the technical terminology is correct. It's a blog on which we post blog posts. So Seth talks about showing up every day. He posts on his blog because it's today, not because he's got necessarily something particularly profound to say, although invariably what he does say every day is quite profound. But he's developed a practice, and he also talks about loving what you do, creating love for what you do. So there is something to be said for showing up and serving your work, whatever the work actually is, which is as important as finding work that serves you. But that's kind of another whole conversation for another day. But the thing around practice that I wanted to mention is there's no use us just talking about this kind of esoteric ivory tower thing that is a product. Is that your doorbell?
It is. It's a delivery. They'll leave it outside.
In your ivory tower, you've got a lovely doorbell. So it's about showing up generally around that, and that's how our story can really serve us, because we may have a product that makes perfect sense for our perfect audience and is very responsive in terms of our own lives, lifestyles, values, whatever. Mm-hmm. But if we're not kind of showing up every day around that, if we're not serving the story that shows why that product is something that will work for people and why we're the best to serve it, then the science and theory behind the design of the product may well be a wasted effort. So how we show up in our marketing around the product that we're building is also an interesting one to be thinking about when you're thinking about what kind of product you have the capacity to build.
Yeah. And I think that also links really closely with that thing of, well, who are you building the product for? are you building a product because you want to sell it, or are you building a product because people want to buy it? And that, I think, is important, because it's that thing of, when people say, oh, it's hard to talk about what I do, it's like, well, it's probably because people aren't interested in what you do, because you've built a product that you want to sell. You're not building a product that is what people want to buy. Because if you've got a product that people want to buy, you can talk about it all day long, because people want to know and keep asking you questions. And it's easy to make podcast episodes and YouTube videos and blogs and content about stuff that people are interested in, because they're like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Do you know what, Jakob, I like your blog about that. That was really interesting. Can you tell me more about this? And you're like, oh, brilliant. Well, there's another blog for next week. And there it is. It's people naturally bring questions and inquiry and interest to a topic that they're interested in. And when your product is mapping to that, and it's answering that, and it's helping to bring that sort of feeling, outcome or insight that they're after, then they naturally become very inquisitive about it and want to know about it, and then making content around it is easy. Conversely, if you've made a product which is just what you want to sell, so you've seen, I'm going to use Jane again, the made-up coach down the road, who's doing 8 sessions and they're priced at $9.99, and she also has a book, and she posts lots of pictures of her dog, and then you try and do the same because you think, well, I want the client of clients she's got, then it just doesn't work. It doesn't fit. There's nothing there that is yours, that's interesting, that sets you apart. And to use another great Seth Godin quote, if all your customer wants to talk about is price, it's because you've given them nothing else to talk about. So actually, price shouldn't really ever be too big a question, because the price really isn't actually that relevant, as long as it's not like completely out of people's price range for your niche. As long as it fits with the expectation of the value that's being delivered at the end, then really the price is not something that needs to come up. Because if I've bought into your method early on, I've listened to your podcast, I've watched some videos, I've come to your crowdcast sessions, I've fully invested in the fact that the way you talk about this and what you do is just what I now believe is my solution, then when I move from solution aware to product aware, I'm only looking for someone who delivers that exact method in product form. And at that moment, your product is the perfect fit. So that the price isn't the problem, because I've already sold myself on the delivery and the outcome. So I'll make the price work. As long as it's not, astronomically out of range, then that's fine. You can do that. But I think there's that element of progression through that process helps take away a lot of these things that people often say, oh, well, I don't want to tie myself to one product because it's really hard to sell. And, but what if someone wants it differently? It's like, well, if someone's bought into your method, they're not going to want it differently. If someone wants 17 sessions, it's like, well, you can't have 17 sessions because that's not how the method works. It's like, read my book on the method and then come back and tell me why you want 17 sessions. Then they'll come back and just be like, yeah, forget that. How do I buy the thing? It's that thing. I think
it's a mixture of, I'm thinking about having to be product aware. I mentioned it as a slip earlier, but I'm thinking about it consciously now and intentionally. So we've talked about how many coaches will be aware and sort of be thinking about your sort of course of 6 hour and a half long sessions or group work. And, one of the things we're not saying is you have to reinvent a wheel and sort of come up with a new delivery method. And in fact, what we all understand to be the bread and butter of coaching and how you might deliver it, it's still important to bear in mind that if you're talking to, if your niche audience are, for example, recently divorced fathers, it might not be something they've ever thought about. How will I go about achieving the outcome that now somebody is quite convincingly talking to me about needing? Oh, you're suggesting that if I do group work, that might be something. Oh, right. I mean, I've never even thought about getting together with a load of other divorced fathers. How is group work going to be working out the problem for me? And so there's a degree of showing why, the way in which you might deliver something, even if you know that amongst coaches it's a really well understood practice. You know, part of your content, part of your marketing, part of your storytelling, and part of your kind of journey painting for a client is why you've chosen group work. What is it about the group work that's going to serve the outcome that you're specifically talking to in relation to that specific person? And why is the frequency of the group work of relevance? And can you contextualize that, you know, in some way that shows that, you know, this is how coaches often very successfully work. The difference being that there's no coaches like you with your experience who are specifically serving recently divorced fathers, for example. You know, and otherwise the rarity, the scarcity problem around products means that people, you know, no one's going to necessarily buy a car that no one's ever heard of, even if it's very sophisticated on a technical level, very shiny, very robust, you know, and, you know, it needs to sort of either allude to classic cars that other people can appreciate it has iterated from, or it needs to have a healthy market out there that enough people will appreciate what it is. And we have this problem, you know, in relation to art, you know, that the if there's only one or two pieces of an artwork, it's not going to have the same market value as if there's enough for people to collect these things and to start attributing value and stories to. And I think similarly, coaching products exist within a bigger picture of other coaching products. So there's no point talking about how your thing is so unique in its build that nothing like it has existed. I think actually, you know, it's healthy, and I'll use what we do as an example. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of communities that you can join. There are millions of accelerators you can do. There are many courses that you can access. And so the model that we use isn't the rocket science. The rocket science is who we're building it for, why we're qualified, how we've packaged it, what we're selling it as, and how supportive we can be about, you know, not only selling the product, but kind of holding the hand while the product is being used. So I hope that's landing with people. I'd be quite interested. The chat has gone quiet, which is either a really good thing or a really bad thing. Yeah, really interested in people's thoughts around this product conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think another thing that sort of came up for me just then was around the fact that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So when I'm saying, you know, you have to fit your product to your method, if your product naturally fits in 6 sessions that are an hour each, then that's absolutely fine. The thing is if you lead with it's 6 sessions and the price is this, then people just divide the price by the sessions and then compare your hourly rate to someone else. Whereas if you lead with the method and say, okay, well actually I'm selling you this method, and what we do is there's a guide I give you, you know, it comes with 3 videos to watch, and it also then has 6 one-to-one sessions. Then you're saying that the outcome, feeling or insight is this much, and that's the process. And you may then say, and actually it might take more than 6 sessions, and if it does, we've got other ways of extending that, but we discover that during those 6. And you know what I mean? You can start to have different conversations that aren't just a case of, oh, well, Jane down the road's actually $37.50 an hour and you're £40 an hour, so actually I'm going to go with Jane, because then you've not given them anything else to talk about, right? It's that thing of, whereas if you're pretty much the only person out there offering this method in this way that you work, then it's not about your hourly rate. It's not about the number of sessions. It's about the outcome and the feeling.
We were kind of quite aware that people coming to a session about products are going to want a list of all the different products that you might like to build and all the prices.
Yes.
And so we're intentionally not wanting to go down that road. If you do our Brave Away Accelerator, which is our much more immersive course, which involves group work
and one-to-one, yeah.
Then we certainly do spend time considering all the different mechanisms that you can employ your method by and help you to design what it is that is the perfect product for you. But the reason we don't want to do that in the first instance is because it's so tempting to settle on a look of a product without thinking about the who. So who is it that you're trying to serve? What do they really need? What is the kind of product that's going to work for them? And then to go back to the mindset stuff and your values stuff and go, what is going to really work for me at this point in my life? So that's, something we're not looking to kind of give you a list of potential products. And then the pricing thing, as Simon's describing, is it's so easy to go down the route of just thinking about the fact that your price needs to be better than someone else's, or it needs to... people need to understand the price of your time. But we're not saying price won't be a big conversation, and again, we absolutely do provide space to have that conversation, but it is a very deep conversation, and will look different for different people depending on the kind of outcome that you're serving to whom and when. So we don't want your product to be driven by what the price of it is. Having said all that, there's a lot of important and, arguably boring spreadsheet work to do in terms of working out how much you need to earn a year, let's say, or how much you would like to. And of course, a lot of that speaks to, what money means to you. What does money buy you? And, but nevertheless, there's the sort of I have to live conversation. And then it makes perfect sense to divide the year up in terms of, what time do you have and how much money do you need to make in order to be able to live and support your dependents, and how can your products reflect that. But it's a case of when you're talking about the price that you have attributed to your service or your product, that, as Simon says, is not the selling point. The selling point is what you're helping people achieve.
And if people's first question is, well, how much is it, then they just haven't quite got their heads around what you're delivering, I think. Because if someone's really clear on it, they're going to be like, so tell me more about this thing you do in the session. What's that all about? Whereas if their first knee-jerk question is, well, that sounds expensive, then all it means is they haven't yet seen the value in what you do. So at that point, you just have to say, well, actually, I don't hear that a lot. Why do you say that? That's my favourite comeback to that sounds expensive. And it immediately opens up this huge thought process, and it allows you to see what they're comparing you to. And we do it a lot in the agency. If someone says, oh, that's an expensive price for a website, we just say, oh, it's unusual, we don't hear that a lot, why'd you say that? And they're like, oh, well, because I'm comparing you to Squarespace, and Squarespace is at this much. And you're like, oh, okay, great, so you're making an unfair comparison, in which case let me help you understand what we're adding on top of Squarespace, which means I don't see this as being expensive.
Love that.
And then you can have that conversation. Whereas if you just kind of go, and go, oh, all right, well, what if I did it?
Apologies.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay.
The apologetic.
Yeah,
sales pitch.
Yeah, what about if I give you 50% off?
Yeah,
that's
no,
always
right.
a standard.
You're absolutely right. Who am I to try? Yeah. Kieran, thank you for your great comment here. I find it so interesting thinking about this in terms of my old agency, who sold blocks of 5, 10 and 15 sessions, all of which alluded to the same outcome. I took elements of this technique quite unconsciously. So this is an interesting one, because for all we know, to be fair to whatever agency this is selling whatever it is they sell, they may well have put a lot of time into sort of the blocks of 5, 10 and 15 sessions, and nevertheless settled on his 5, 10, 15 sessions. It's the interesting bit is, and even so, even having alluded to the same outcome, I'm wondering if the outcome that they're serving is for different people at different stages, and that they're saying, right, person A, for you to achieve outcome X, which is what we serve, you need 5 sessions. For person B, well, you're a bit further off, so you're going to need 10. And person C, you're not even aware, so you definitely need 15, And so, one can still come to a point where you're selling blocks with a price, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's the peripheral story around what those blocks and price are serving. What the investment is that someone would make in the outcome that you're serving with 5 blocks, which is the interesting thing, because we're not suggesting that you need to design something that's like super original, and that you don't publish the price if you for the sake of like creating smoke and mirrors or whatever. Like, people are going to work in very different ways. Some people will like to publish a price on their website. Lots of people might say categorically don't do that, because you will not be able to entertain a price conversation, and that is perfectly true. But for some people it's a point of anxiety to kind of try and sell a product without any price attached at all. And at some point a price is going to have to be discussed. I can feel that Simon's going to have different thoughts on this, possibly. And one might say, sure, have a price for a course, but don't have a price for your one-to-one, because everyone's different. I get nervous about kind of blanket. This is the right way to go with regards to pricing a product.
Yeah, pricing is really tough, and I think, without wanting to get into pricing, because we could talk for a week on pricing and still not come to a conclusion, because it's different for everybody, and that's why we don't focus on it too heavily early on in our learning in our course structure, because it's not the right conversation to have. It's essentially, we'll work out what you need to charge for it and then charge it. There's not really much more to it than that, because moving into the realms of pricing conversations and dynamic pricing, you need to have such a high level of understanding of what you're selling, I feel, in order to get to that and it feel authentic and not just like you're winging it. And there's nothing weirder than winging a price and then having to do well, that doesn't sound expensive, tell me why, and then have someone have to justify a price that you don't believe in.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be expensive. We're also not saying that if you're very, very comfortable with what your product is, you can price out of this, water and make millions. That's not where we're going with this at all, because, you might also decide to make it very accessible. That might be a really important value to you, but still you're able to articulate. And again, there's arguments around underpricing and the psychology around that. Again, it's just, are you confident about where that price is coming from in a way that you openly are talking about it, but it should be part of you're talking around the design of the product as well. So the product is designed for a particular audience who are doing this, who are like this, who need this.
I think also looking at Kieran's thing of the 5, 10, 15, it's like, so let's say you've got a 5-step method, right? Then having groups of 5 sessions in blocks makes perfect sense, because it's like, well, we can work through it once, we can work through it twice, we can work through it 3 times. But what you might find there's more value in is saying, well, actually, to get you started, I've made a video course, and there's 5 bits of this video course, and it covers the essential bits that I think you need to know in order to have a deeper understanding and appreciation of this. And you can have a fixed price for that, and it's just you buy the course. And then what you can do is you can say, once you've done that, or if you feel you're at a level of understanding where you don't need that, then we can go into session work. And that could be group session, it could be one-to-one session. But if you feel that someone maybe needs 15 sessions rather than 5, to me that sort of raises a little bit of a red flag of, well, you don't really know how many sessions this is going to take. And for some coaches that is definitely a factor. I appreciate that you can't always say how many sessions it's going to be. But if you find that actually you always spend the first 3 sessions just going over the same ground, then you might like to consider, well, actually, could I just create a resource in which I can kind of get people to cover that ground before they come to the group work or the one-to-one sessions? And then you may have an understanding of, actually, well, if someone comes at that level, then generally we're looking at this many sessions. So obviously there's lots of different ways of packaging it up and, cutting the cake, as they say. There's lots of different ways we can do that, and that's why it becomes much more of a conversation to advise rather than just this, which is essentially us just throwing the ideas out and seeing what lands, essentially. So for some of you, you may still be sat there going, but the way I work with my clients just doesn't do this. And it's like, that's fine. That's not a problem. We're not saying what you're doing is wrong. We're just saying it's definitely worth considering that element of the method and the buy-in, and that moving from problem aware to solution aware. So going from, okay, I want to do something about it, then solution to product, which is then that, right, now I'm actually looking to solve that problem. And being with someone on that journey is way easier if you've planned that journey out, rather than what a lot of people do, which is run straight to the back of the room and go, right, let's get stuck into product. And then who's it for? Oh, I don't know, I'll figure that out. How many sessions does it need? Doesn't matter, we're just 5, that'll do. Great. And they bundle it up, and then they turn around and then try and sell it to all these people, and it's just, it's like, this is just not the right thing at all.
In a way, just back to Jacob's excellent question, it's a tricky one, because arguably you might need more products to speak to the sort of nuances of a person's journey. I'm thinking of, like, you know, let's say your 3-year-old says they want to, you know, their goal in life is to be part of the Tour de France. Well, they're going to start with a little bike with trainer, you know, whatnot, sort of thing called
Stabilizers.
You know, that's a product they will need at that point. You know, and as they increase in their kind of confidence and physical ability, you know, wind the clocks forward 15 years and they may well be in the Tour de France with a very, very different bike. But if you're a good coach, then you'll have understood what they need at that time. And yeah, Rob, I mean, you know, it'd be great to have you do our self-service course. You might then see for yourself how your video course could serve people really wonderfully, and be a great way for you to then sort of have a conversation with them about what else they can go on to achieve, and sort of how you are able to support them in that. So, you know, in fact, there is no correlation between how well you've been able to niche and how few products you therefore need to have, because you might have niched super specifically, confidently, and in a really great creative way, but you may also have capacity and appetite, and have seen that there's the that it's appropriate to have 5 different products for that particular audience, depending on where they are, or, you know, what lifestyle they have, where, you know, for some of them a podcast is going to be the best product to buy, for some of them the course is going to be the best product, you know. But it's just also about talking about how your suite of products will service that particular audience. And as Simon has said, you know, how talking about all of your products as part of your story, a part of how what you do is best delivered, is kind of the compelling thing. You can't just put a shelf of products out there and hope that people like the packaging and go, just get that.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think coaching is almost unique in that sense. There is a way that people are approaching the outcome, insight or feeling from the very start of that journey to the end of that journey is sometimes years. And, you know, we're not selling tins of beans. This is it could take someone 2 or 3 years to even decide they want to work with a coach. You know, that moving from problem aware to solution aware can be a long journey. And someone could be on your mailing list for years before they even decide. You know, they open one email every 6 months. But suddenly something drops, something changes in their you know, situation, their worldview, whatever, and they're suddenly like, do you know what? Now is the time to go and do something about this. And so I think your product will adapt and grow as your niche changes and as your niche evolves, but also as your learning and understanding evolves. You know, if you make a video course now, in 2 years' time, you may need to redo that video course or update some modules on it. That's just part and parcel of learning and growing as a coach. And I think a lot of what we talk about is not feeling tied to anything for too long, because that's some of the resistance we hear on niching. I don't want to be tied to this small audience, and it's that thing we're not. You know, it don't have to be. You can change your niche every couple of years, every year if you wanted to, or evolve your niche a little bit every year as you get clearer on the language and clearer on what they want and clearer on what's motivating them. You may, after 5 years of delivering a video course, realise actually you don't even need to do group work. You could make another video course or a whole other thing that means you don't need to do group work anymore. You can just go to one-to-one.
You might really love group work, because you find it so nourishing, and so then you'll be in an interesting situation where you may, on the one hand, be thinking the product that best serves my audience is this, but I love group work. So how is it going to work that I can do what makes me tick every day, but is also super serving of my audience? And lots of creative stuff can happen there. It might be that you've worked with a group of people who, anyway, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I just want to say, because I'm so mindful of time, this has gone far faster than I...
It's been an absolute whirlwind, isn't it?
Today.
Brilliant.
But the more we understand of our ideal client, the better we're going to be able to connect with them. And that's what's key, is, building something and then marketing it in a way that makes people feel rightly that you do understand them and have their best interests at heart and a best place to serve them, and understand yourself, so that you're someone that they can rely on.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? I'm mindful of time. Has anyone got any thoughts or questions or specific things you wish we'd have covered?
We'll also be taking the conversation on inside the community. If anybody wants to ask any other questions or chat further, we will be available.
Yeah, and if
in the
anyone's
community
not clear,
when we post the replay tomorrow morning.
There's a join the community button there in case you want to.
There is
join.
Indeed. If you're watching this live and you're not a member and you want to check us out, then do give us a look. The button will take you straight to a page that will tell you all about it, and give you a bit more information. And then if you are watching this on the replay and this has got you thinking, then do check it out. There's a lot of great conversation, lots of good sessions happening. We are launching the self-service course that we've been teasing you with all the way through this. That's launching in mid-October, unless you're watching this in the distant future, in which case it may already have launched. You'll have to check out the page to find out. And then there'll be more news on our Brave Away programme coming as well. So
my
thank
final
you.
thought. Can I offer a final thought?
Yes, let's do that.
I really hope that... I think people are often told that they need to have a call to action at the end of every piece of marketing that they put out there. And if the call to action is the product, is the kind of invitation to look at the product or buy the product, if you're able to talk about the product in a way that illustrates why you're of value, of interest, then you don't become as ashamed to kind of have that call to action at the end of your posts. So, I hope that this has helped people to imagine weaving a conversation about what their product is into a blog post that might be about the story of where they're coming from. Because if you can end up with, what I do now is I run this community and I've designed this course specifically to speak to this particular need, and it makes you feel not icky because it makes perfect sense, then that would be a place that I would be happy that people are left off with from this conversation.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's the thing, isn't it, is once you've got a good product and it feels right, then it doesn't feel like selling, it feels like telling people what you're all about. And that move from that selling it to telling it it just feels so much better and more authentic. And yeah, I think it's a big, powerful move. So, and
also not just telling it, but like the generosity of offering it is like, thank you. So not selling, but giving is the way to think about what it is you're building. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. That was lovely, but very fast.
Do join us next week. By simply watching this, you will get an email from Crowdcast inviting you to join the next one. So do go and have a look through our future events, which you can get to by the Crowdcast button up in the top. Or if you're a community member, they're all listed out in the events section. So do join us for the next conversation. Thank you very much for listening and watching.
Content.
And we'll see you
the next one's content.
Oh, yes, of course.
Say that. Content.
Yes. content
is what the
is
next one's all about. So what are we going to put out there?
What on earth do we talk about? What on earth are we going to talk about in content? There we go. There's so much to talk about. That big question, what do I talk about?
Yeah,
it's going to be good fun.
See you there.
Excellent. Join us next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.